Welcome to Night Light. Step away from the mainstream and gather around as we enlighten the world and our realities and travel this cosmic journey we call life. Join us as we share with you and provide that beacon that can guide us all to a better way. Explore with us as we examine a metaphysical montage of spiritual insights, covering everything from the mundane to the magical, UFOs to unicorns, and everything in between. This is a time of awakening, of sharing and evolving, of spreading our wings and soaring on the cosmic breath of creation. Come and join with other light-minded spirits as we weave our lights together to seek understanding, enlightenment, and, with a little luck, some wisdom. This is Nightlight, a reminder that you are never alone.
Hi guys, and welcome to, it almost sounds like it's a sitcom, Karma and Dharma. Two very good friends of mine, actually. And I decided to do Karma and Dharma with you guys because we all throw the word around karma all the time. And I don't think that we all understand it, and I'm including myself in it. But more importantly than anything else, I don't think many have used the word Dharma at all, except, as Deb mentions, Dharma and Greg, Dharma and Greg, but it wasn't. Was it Dharma? Oh gosh! Now, well, anyhow, a good sitcom. You should all go look and watch that. It was very clever and very well done. Anyhow, the concept of Dharma. You have to understand Dharma before you understand karma, because they are built one upon the other. And what is amazing and so synchronistic, it's almost like we were guided to go this way. I don't know. I guess in a way, yes, we were. Dharma has been called the path of righteousness. And it means righteousness, morality, religion, responsibility, duty. It is the foundation upon which we live our lives, and synchronistically, it gets down to it's the universal laws that it is basically based upon. Now I gave you the Hindu and the Buddhist stuff. But basically, it talks about Dharma being how you live your life, basically, what it is you base your life on, whether it's religious stuff or whether it is a spiritual aspect that you have within yourself. You know, it doesn't have to be a religious anything, but Dharma is very, very important because it is the foundation upon which you have based your life, and how you follow those rules that you have inside of you, and how you interact with your environment is what creates karma. So by living dharmically, so to speak, by following those universal laws that we spent 2 weeks on, and probably could spend a whole 10 weeks on if we really wanted to dig and bore everyone to death. It's important that you understand Dharma are the laws by which you are living your life. Karma is what your actions bring to you, and so it's understanding that. I think they listed someplace here as I leave very, very fast through. The 10 rules of Dharma are patience, forgiveness, pity or self-control, honesty, sanctity, control of the senses, reason, knowledge or learning, truthfulness, and the absence of anger. And it's important that you understand that these all go right back to the universal laws of cause and effect, and law of attraction and the law of reflection. It's all based on that material, so that if you understand that those are the laws that you're supposed to be living by, that you're supposed to be guiding yourself by, and if you aren't aware of what those laws are or what the rules are, then it makes the rest of it really, really, really tough. Now, to go into karma means action or deed. So that for every action you perform, there is a reaction, and that would be karma. And it's interesting because when you look through the material that I gave you, or if you haven't read it, when you do read it, it's fascinating to see that in many places they treat it differently, but basically a lot of our karma, a lot of the karma that we gather, because everything you do creates a form of karma. Karma is an integral part of everything you do, everything you say, and so it's not a matter of it's either good karma or bad karma, and because a lot of it has to do with your intention, and I think that's what a lot of people don't understand, because it's the intention that motivates the action that creates the karma. So that while your actions of the past are definitely your life now, as you see it, as you're sitting, as you look around, you are a reflection of the karma that you have gathered from your actions of the past. But many people don't understand that you have total control over the karma that is going to be coming at you in the future. It is your intent and your actions based upon those laws that we looked at last week. It has to do with how you are going to pursue. You can't do a whole lot about the past because you've already done that stuff, but you can control greatly the kind of karma that you are going to draw into your life by seeding your consciousness with the positive, with the loving, with the kind, with the generous, and understanding that you're in essence you're programming yourself for good karma, not only in the future of this lifetime, but in lifetimes yet to come. So that there's a great deal of control you have over your reality, the here and the now. Your perception certainly, will determine how you're going to feel about it, but it's important for us to continue to understand that those laws are constantly in effect. They're constantly out there. They're constantly being applied to every action we take, whether it is your automatic reactions. Karma doesn't apply to those, but those where there is intent are definitely in there for pulling karma towards us one way or the other. And the important thing, too, is to understand that anger is not a really wise thing to have in your life. They talk about the discipline of unattached action, which is and there was a universal law that applied to that as well. But I think it's important for us to understand that that's the way of being in total control of everything, and I love the who was it? Lord Krishna said in the Gita, to the man thinking about objects in his life of the senses arises attachment towards them. From attachment arises longing. From longing arises anger. From anger comes delusion. From delusion, loss of memory. From loss of memory, the ruin of discrimination. And on the ruin of discrimination, he perishes. So that I'm not saying that we should go that route, because I think, frankly, that's fine if you're walking on water and you're going to ascend into the clouds at some point in time. But but most of us are not going to be doing that. Karma is action, our actions, all of our actions, even our thoughts, because they become actions. They put actions into movement. Even our thoughts and the intent behind them will bring karma or good fortune or love or compassion to us. So it's, we have total control here, and so often we feel as though we are at the mercy of the powers that be. It's kind of like, it's bad karma, I must have done something in a past life. Maybe you did. But that doesn't mean that you have to wallow in being angry or upset over the fact that things that are not fair are coming your way. You need to try to remember that tomorrow hasn't happened yet, and you have total control over how you can perceive, how you can move into the future, and how you can seed your consciousness to seed the way you perceive to create a better, richer, more joyful, more bountiful, more abundant, more, we have control over this. And so many of us kind of lose hope and wallow. And when you lose hope and wallow, all you're doing is guaranteeing that tomorrow is going to be the same as today, and maybe even worse. So it's a matter of stepping back and taking control over what's going on within your consciousness, within your life, because your consciousness you have total control over. You absolutely do. It's just a matter of paying attention and making sure your intent is aimed in the right direction. When that happens, then things start to change. Things start to flow in different directions for you, and things will open up for you. It's amazing because we as spiritual entities have so much power, so much control, and so much and such a great ability at changing our lives and our world. And so many just choose to sort of float around and kind of go with what the people around us are thinking or saying instead of changing things within our own life. You change things within yourself. You change you change your reality. You change the way people interact with you. You change. Just a simple change of yourself is going to create a new reality for you. And so many of us forget that. So many of us get locked into almost we get frozen in place just because we have kind of lost control. And the reality is that you have total control. You can control the kind of people you draw into your life. You can control the kind of situations that come your way. Does it happen overnight? No, probably not, but it will happen. And what happens is that so many people, sit and say, okay, I'm changing things now. I am, they chart right now, I am changing things. And I'm going to love everybody, I'm going to be nice to everybody, and tomorrow everything is going to be just hunky-dory. And probably not. It has to be consistent. It has to be genuine. It has to be loving. You're probably still paying for some of the crap you did a couple of days ago or a couple of years ago or maybe even a couple of lifetimes ago, because karma does follow you lifetime to lifetime. And if you have been, a real jerk in a past lifetime, you probably have a lot of things you have to make up for. And you have to understand that as individuals, and I'm talking to the conscious, physical part of you, as individuals, it doesn't seem fair sometimes because I don't know what that person did. That wasn't me, but it was you. And you have to understand that we're talking on a spiritual level here. We're talking a higher consciousness level. We're not talking on a personality level. Your personality and your ego have only got this lifetime to draw on. And yeah, a lot of times things don't feel or seem fair. But on a larger scale, they are. On a larger scale, there is universal balance, and you can swing that balance, and you can change that balance today, this moment. by really shifting your total perception. It doesn't work if you just do it for half an hour and then you go out and you complain about stuff and you feel like it's not worth it, and it has to be a complete shift and change, and that's where the difficulty comes in. That's where we have to really take control. That's where we have to really work on ourselves. It doesn't happen overnight, but and I'm I'm not all the way there for sure. I mean, even though I understand the philosophy, lots of times it's very difficult to put the whole thing into practice constantly, consistently enough so that things do shift and change. However, it does work, and it is something that as a human spirit, a spirit on a human journey here, your spirit understands when you're genuinely working in those areas and working to make the shifts and changes, and it does help. It does cooperate. But there are lots of ways you can work on this. You can put Post-its all over the place, reminding yourself that it's a positive thing. Everything is positive, and you don't go to extremes. If you break a leg, it probably hurts, but the reality is maybe you needed to be held in place for a while so you could get your thoughts and your focus down better. Everything happens for a reason. It truly does, and we have truly got the power to make incredible shifts within our lives. But it's sort of like a person on a spiritual journey has a pretty good grasp of all of this material, and so many of us haven't really delved into these aspects of our own lives. Saying you're on a spiritual journey and looking for spirituality and, oh, hey, look at me, I'm a light worker, not so much probably. It's how do you live your life? How do you treat humanity? How do you address the people around you and the situations you come into contact with? It's not something you do just on a 2-hour show, or it's not something you do if you're standing in a pulpit talking to people. It's how you live your life. Your life you have to become a living example of the philosophy that you are saying you are practicing. And that's where most of us fall down. That's where all of us fall down. No, I can't speak for all of you. That's where I fall down. It's something you practice over and over and over again. It's something that you apply to every moment, every second of your life. And it doesn't mean that you become, a holier than thou person, because if you do become a holier than thou person, you're judging everybody else and you're really on the wrong track. But it's an understanding of the laws that guide you, and it's putting them into practice without talking about it. It's living the philosophies, and in living the philosophies, you teach the philosophies to other people. It's teaching by action, not by words. I wanted to put a circle like this together so that the philosophies could be put out there, so people could kind of read through them and understand them and talk about them. Underline the talk about them, because I can talk forever, you guys. But if you share with me, if you share your thoughts and your philosophies, then we get a dialogue and energy moving. And I don't know how many. I don't know how often I'm going to batter you with this, but listening to me talking only is one-sided. When you talk back with me, when we share our philosophies, when we share what we think about things, then everybody learns, and the energy that is generated is multiplied incredibly, and there's a greater energy for everybody to draw from, so that that makes it a richer experience for everyone, even those who listen in archive. And I know a lot of people do listen in archive, which surprised the daylights out of me. But so what we're looking at here is karma is amazing, and it gives you so much power. It means that no matter what crap is going on, at this moment in time in your life. You have the power to change tomorrow and next week and next year and next decade. It's never hopeless, never, ever, ever. And it's how you perceive, how you work with the energy, how you approach your reality that is really, really, really important. Now you have to. There are a few other things that are important for all of us to sort of deal with. We are all equal. Every single one of us is equal. We have the same equipment to work with. We have the same level of spirit within each of us. Everybody has the same material to work with, so that nobody is beyond anybody else. There are no levels of enlightenment here. There is enlightenment. And as soon as the door opens and you begin to experience a lot of the wonderful stuff that comes about here, then you expand greatly everything. And it's not a religious experience. I want to really make that point clear again and again and again. While everybody has, or most people have, a religious foundation of some sort, this has nothing to do with religion. This is how you are living your spiritual beliefs, not your religious philosophies, your spiritual beliefs. So that I know some people come from a Judeo-Christian background. Some people come from no background. Some people come from being agnostic. Some people come from some of the Asian cultures. I mean, it doesn't matter. What matters is the integrity and the sincerity that you have to live those universal laws, and how you are applying them and seeing them in your life. And all of us can see these patterns: the law of cause and effect, the law of attraction, the law of reflection. We can see all of those laws taking at work within our lives at every moment in time. But I think that it's most important to understand karma in that it doesn't apply to physical illness at all. I want to really make that real clear. It has to do with other aspects of your life. These things, as well as the spiritual laws, apply to you spiritually. Now, your body is a body. It's an organic organism that has a period of time that it will flourish and then it will die, and your spirit will go on to another organic organism. So that you have illness is not a way you're punished, I guess is what I want to say. If you abuse your body, it will get sick. If you take care of your body, it'll last longer. Our bodies were made for about 120 years. And after that, it's time to get a new model. And that's what we do. And we will be talking reincarnation and Akashic Records in the weeks yet to come. But karma applies to the actions that you take within this reality. Your words, your thoughts, your intent, what you've sent out to other people comes back at you. Law of attraction. I know that a lot of people look at the law of attraction as, this is how you get a relationship. Well, you know what? The first relationship you have to have is with yourself. And if you don't have that relationship with yourself, you're not going to have anything. I mean, you may have relationships, but they won't be as rich as you want. They won't be the kind that you've kind of set yourself up for, and that you put out there on your checklist of, please give me this kind of relationship because I deserve it. If you deserve it, it's there. If you haven't worked for it, if you're not ready for it, it's not there. It's really that plain and simple. But karma is something that is amazing, and most people mostly refer to it as bad karma. Oops, bad karma. Going to have, I'm going to pay for that one at a later date, and you do. but good karma comes too. And I think people don't understand that, or they look at it and, they only apply karma to situations that are difficult or hurtful or embarrassing or upsetting. But they don't understand that the good karma is out there as well, and that you can literally plant the seeds. You can program yourself to draw good karma to yourself, and you can do it right now. You don't have to wait. You don't have to, you can start right now. It has to do with your perception and your intent behind all of your actions. And most of us are reacting automatically. We're programmed. We've been programmed by our culture, our parents, our teachers, our environment, our ethnic stuff. And we don't understand that we can change that. They're what was the musical? The one that going to wash that man right out of my South Pacific. There's a song, and the song is, you've got to be taught to hate, and you've got to be taught anger. And that's true, because we come into this lifetime full of love, full of trust, full of all sorts of wonderful stuff. And we are taught all of those things that are not good by childhood, by parents, by people who are cruel to us, by lots of people. But you can teach yourself, you can reprogram yourself to compensate for that, to not react to that. You can teach yourself to not react to people who do bad things to you. You can, and I'm not saying, you turn all four of your cheeks to everybody to get smacked 4 times. If you turn 4 cheeks, you're foolish. You should have walked away after 2 cheeks. But the reality here is that while your environment has molded you and programmed you, you are fully capable of reprogramming. And that's the important thing. It's kind of like, okay, you have a situation that's uncomfortable and it's not right, it's not fair. Now you have a choice. You can fight back and create a hell of a mess, or you can kind of move on and get going with the rest of your life and sort of reprogram yourself to not allow that kind of a situation to occur again. You can do that with relationships. You can do that with work. You can do that in all sorts of different places. So that one of the biggest lessons that, in my opinion, should have been taught to us and hasn't been is that we have control here. We can do something about this. We can reprogram ourselves. We can take a look at our situation, whether it's work or relationship or finding careers or whatever. And we can not only look upon it positively, and I'm hearing people saying, yeah, sure, that's really easy to do. I'm positive I'm going to get a job. I'm positive I'm going to get a job. Not. I've tried so long, it's not going to happen. I've hit my head against a brick wall, and it's not going to happen. So you immediately, with that kind of thought, have absolutely negated out any positive thought you sent out there. So that it's important to understand that being consistent and really putting it out there in a positive mode and not letting the not so positive thoughts come in, that you do reprogram yourself. You do move into a more positive, a more loving, a more caring kind of environment and atmosphere. You create what you want. That the law of reflection. What you are inside is what you are drawing to yourself. If you don't like what's there, change it. If you aren't happy with a situation, change it. And you start with inside. You don't start making massive changes outside by kicking people out of your life and moving into or even moving into a different town and starting all over again. Because I promise you, your problems, all of them, will come right along with you. But it's sort of like, okay, I let this happen. How did that happen? How can I change it? I can take back my power. I can claim myself. I can say I'm going. You can say I'm going to be successful. I'm going to be successful. You do have to work at it too, though. You can't just claim it. You have to actually believe it yourself. And as soon as you actually start to believe it, as soon as it becomes natural to you, you will find that subtly, very subtly at first, and then even more and more and more obviously, you will find people treating you differently. You will find doors opening for you. You will find your attitude and how you leave the house in the morning makes all the difference in the world. It's I think that the thing about karma, the thing about the law of attraction and all of these other laws and everything, you have to believe. And if you don't believe, it doesn't work. It's that simple. It's Peter walking on the water and looking down and then, falling in because he suddenly realized he was walking on water and he didn't really believe he could, so he didn't. But that element of faith, that element of belief is really important. I know that I can fly. I don't believe it, but I know I can fly. So yes, you have to leave your house. But you can start in your house. You can start really small, but truly and really, if you look at people who glow and radiate joy, and they're not obnoxious about it, they just are. People are friendly to them, they're kinder to them, they're drawn to them. It's amazing, and you're not obnoxious about it, because if you're obnoxious about it, people will just think you're crazy and walk away, and you probably will be on the edge actually, but it's understanding that your perception and your intention are very, very important. And it's not something that you can just do for 15 minutes and then walk away and just say, well, where is it? It's something you do constantly. It's something that you pound into yourself. And I mean that. You pound it into yourself. You have to convince yourself that it's possible. We all know we can cause trouble in our lives, but if that's the case, then we can cause good stuff in our lives too. And it takes work. It takes going out there and working on how you treat other people, working on how you react to situations. And I'm not saying you become somebody that people walk over and take advantage of, because that's not going to help you. And unless you have a belief that you are worthwhile, other people will not treat you that way. And it's okay at some point in time to say to someone, no, I deserve better than that. That's not how a friendship works. That's not how a loving relationship works. That's not how a relationship in work works. And I'm not saying you should suddenly whack out and tell people off either. But I am saying that if you stand up for yourself and you do it in a quiet way, you get a tremendous amount of respect. And I'm not saying it happens overnight, because it doesn't. This stuff about becoming a spiritual entity, about being on a spiritual pathway, it's work. But the results, and not only how you feel about yourself, but your entire reality benefits greatly from it. And the people around you learn from you and grow from you. And it's sort of like, you can either be a seed that is depressing and doom and gloomish, or you can be somebody who has joy and has a loving, compassionate way of addressing everyone within their reality. Are you going to be perfect? That would be wonderful. I'm not sure that we achieve perfection down here, but it would be nice, and it's a good way to good direction to go in. But it takes work, and it takes more than a moment here and a moment there. Meditating is lovely. It makes you tranquil. It doesn't do anything for your spiritual pathway. I'm really, really sorry. Prayer is lovely in that it does, put out there a reverence for an entity that is inside of you. I mean, as soon as everybody, kind of grasps the fact that they're really praying to themselves, they're really, they are really being they are honoring a God within themselves as opposed to a deity out there, then you start to change. You have to understand that you are that God. You have that power. You have that control over your reality. And if you decide to work on it, to shift your focus, to understand that every moment has to be a prayer. Each oh gosh, I wrote a poem once. Each word's a thought, each thought's a prayer. It's like that. And you're not obnoxious, and you don't go around trying to win everybody to your way of thought, because that's ridiculous. It doesn't work. And because we are all different and unique, the way that we use this material and the way that we use this philosophy, the way that we walk our spiritual pathway, and the way that we create the Dharma within our lives is all going to be different. It's going to be different for every single one of us. Now, two of us will do it the same way, and that's right, and that's appropriate. You all have the universal laws. Almost every religion out there, everybody agrees with the universal laws. They are universal. They are constantly there, and they are constantly in motion. And as soon as you have an awareness of them and how they apply to you and your reality, and whatever work you want to do, no matter what area it's in, whether you're an auto mechanic or a saint in training, they apply to all of us equally, and it works. You can reprogram yourself. You can change your life, and all of us have places that we want to change our lives. All of us have aspects within our lives we want to shift and change and refocus. No one here is perfect. I don't believe in looking at the chat room and stuff like that. While there are people that are very wonderful there, nobody's perfect. We all have lessons we have to learn, and we all have things we need to change within ourselves. But you have to understand that we can't be judgmental, and that happens to so many people who are on a spiritual pathway. They do become judgmental of others, and that's one of the things that we need to really try to watch and back off from. Everybody is going to have a different way of attaining the kind of light that they are reaching for within their lives, and nobody's wrong. Everybody's right, and just being on a spiritual pathway and admitting that you're on a spiritual pathway is a giant step. Checking out the laws and thinking, oh my God, that's a lot of laws, and it is. But they all say the same thing. They all say you're in control, and you have to take the action, and you are practicing your Dharma when you are understanding that the Dharma is the path to righteousness. The Dharma are the universal laws, and once you put them in play within your life and then use them to create positive karma, you've got it made. Now, it won't happen overnight. I've been working on this almost all my life, probably, let me see. I would say probably from the time I was about 5 or 6 years old, I did understand that certain levels of this, certainly not all of it. And what's amazing is, I mean, you guys who have sat here through that, like this is the fifth week of all of this, you have so much material, and you have so much of a greater understanding of the pathway your spirit is on than 99% of the people you're going to, bump up against, unless you happen to be in the theology school or something like that, and then you're probably behind them. But the fact that you've listened to this material and that you've read through it is a testimony to the fact that a spiritual pathway is a cool thing, and everybody who desires to be on it should have access to the material so that they can understand how to use it. So many people out there are claiming to be spiritual, yet they don't understand the meaning of the term, and that's a little scary. you all have made, a conscious effort to try to understand a philosophy that has sort of become dusty amongst the masses over the last 20, 30 generations. So, it's fun for me to dive into the material and bring it out and dust it off and put it out there for you to understand that we have total control. We are a part of God. We carry a part of God within us. Call it what you want: infinite spirit, universal awareness, the light within. I mean, you can name that spirit that is within you, that is what entered into the fetus and started to create a body to live in for a lifetime. I mean, you are more aware of the fact that there is a consciousness there that has access to everything. It has access to what people call the Akashic records. It has access to other dimensions. It has access to the future. It has access to the source of creation and the power that went into it. And all you need to do is to connect to it. And I do believe that in understanding the laws and understanding karma and dharma and understanding all of the other aspects that we've gone into, that you have built a bridge. Some flimsier than others, but you've all got a bridge, and it's. I would think that some of your thoughts and some of your actions and some of your reactions have flavors of some of the material that we've gone over, and karma and dharma are really, really important, as are the universal laws. So how they have changed your perception is really interesting, and I would take some time and just sort of reflect on just how it has changed, how you act within your life. And it doesn't have to be, major, but knowing that there are laws out there that are going to be in action no matter what you do, no matter what you say. How you perceive yourself within your reality is creating your reality. And the fact that the intention behind every action you take is going to have a corresponding reaction that is going to bring something back to you at some point in time. Maybe not this lifetime, maybe another lifetime, but at least you are seeding your own consciousness and understanding that every good, kind thing you do that you put out there eventually is going to come back to your spirit. Maybe not this lifetime, but it will come back to your spirit. Your spirit will definitely enjoy the harvest of seeds that you have sown now. But I would say that most probably anything that you start to work on now, you're going to see results of in a very short period of time. And it's easy, but it is work, and it is being conscious of how you are impacting your reality, in being conscious of how you pay for your gas, buy your groceries, weed your garden. All aspects of life have a spiritual aspect to them, and the more that you understand that, and it's not religious, it's spiritual. There's a linking to nature. There's a touching into a higher consciousness, not religious, but spiritual. And the more that you connect to that spirit within you, that higher consciousness that I talked about so often, the more you open a channel for it to flow and manifest within your reality, and that's a cool thing. We have such an amazing entity inside of us, and our personalities and our egos are something of our physical reality, but the spirit within is profound, and sometimes people have egos and personalities that make it difficult for the spirit to actually convinced that it's there and let it work through. But other people don't. And I would think that if you've been sitting in this class for 5 weeks, that you certainly know it's there and want to touch in with it and sort of want to make a connection with it so that you can start to utilize not only some of the power that it has to share, but have access to part of the magic that is there too. Because I got to tell you, the more sensitive you become to yourself as a total entity, as a total, I guess entity is the best word. So long as when you become aware of the amazing power that you hold within you, you have to become a lot more confident about just what a magnificent person you are. And the more you understand that there is such power here, that you are capable of so much, and you can change so much. And it starts with simple little things. It's not waving your hand and having manna fall from heaven. It's smiling, and it's loving, and it's caring, and it's kind, and it's generous, and it's compassionate, and it's empathetic. The more sensitive you are to you and that spirit that you carry within you, the more sensitive you become to everybody else. And that's amazing, amazing stuff. No manna from heaven, no. I think that was done once, and that's one of those tricks that it loses its import if you do it more than once. However, there are some Indian gurus that are able to produce manna, so it is possible. If you want to dedicate your life to study, meditation, and prayer, in maybe 50 or 60 years, you could make manna fall from your hand. But I'm not sure that that's really exactly what you want to do. It's amazing what we're capable of, and I want you all to understand that just being sensitive to others is a true gift. It's a gift of spirit. You don't have to go out there and do readings. You don't have to be a channeler or anything like that. But to have that sensitivity for other people means that there is a karma that is being generated, and you smile at a person on the street and it comes back at you. You share a moment of time with someone, actually listening to them. And you have given them a gift of time, which is priceless. And it's karma that comes back at you. But I do think, I do want to, in Hindu there are 3 kinds of Dharma, and I think in Buddhist it's just the same thing. And there is selfless, that there is selfless karma. That means that you expect nothing back, and there are actions that are performed without expectation of material gain, or material or ego or things like that, and then there's karma that is performed that is just genuine and nothing is expected back. And then there's karma that comes back when there is an expectation of material purpose or gain, and so that there are 3 different levels of it, 3 different kinds that you can pull back at yourself. If you do something good and kind because you expect something, then you probably get less than you think you should in return, and that's karma. But if you are genuinely just giving from pure spirit, the gains and the rewards that you get are profound. Now they're not always in the same vein or venue, but you do get that kind of a return. And we all, I've mentioned unconditional love a couple times here, and it means that there are no expectations. it means it's just a genuine loving, and you don't expect anything back in return. And the reality is that when you genuinely don't expect a return, you get a greater return than you could ever imagine. It doesn't happen immediately, but it does happen. And it's really important to understand that. And to give of yourself, of time, of energy, of whatever, and not expect anything in return is it's not hard to do. It's just that we don't remember to do it as often as we should. And so I would urge you to kind of look through all of this material and kind of take some personal notes on it, because most of us have habits in our life that that need to be changed and shifted, and we're able to do that. We have control over that, and if you make those subtle changes, if you kind of alter your behavior to a certain degree, you will find that life does change. What comes back at you changes, and so karma has, one of the important parts about karma is the intention that has gone into your whatever action you have taken, and that intention is what determines what comes back to you, so that you can do something for someone that is the right thing, but not really want to do it. So your intention was not as kind and loving and giving as you would like to have had other people perceive it. And so you will get back exactly what you have given, which is half-hearted. So and that's a tough one, because sometimes it's really hard to be genuinely nice to people who genuinely you don't think deserve it. I think that's more sainthood, but understanding that you're not. None of us are all the way there, at any moment in time. I think a good intention is really good, but somewhere it says the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and that's true too. You can have the good intentions, but your actions don't really fulfill them. So when you are doing things for people, when you are genuinely trying to be kind and loving and giving, take a look and make sure that is where your intentions are, or are you putting strings on it subtly somewhere that old thing about when you go shopping, is it do I want this or do I need this? I think that when we get to some places where we are giving to other people, am I doing this genuinely because I really want to I care and I want to give, or am I doing this because it looks good for PR, or am I doing this because I know down the road I'll get something back that I really don't deserve, but I'll get it anyhow? So okay, how about the balance of being selfless but not giving your power away? There is a balance there, absolutely. And, if you can take the shirt off your back and give it to someone and you have another shirt at home, that's a nice thing. It's not as honorable as it might seem, but you don't give your own personal power away ever. You have to maintain your personal power, but that doesn't mean that you have power over other people. You have to in some ways take care of yourself. So you don't give all your money away, because that is not a smart thing to do. But that's a good question. How would being selfless be giving your power away? Let's see. Mother Teresa was selfless. She gave of herself constantly, but she wasn't giving her personal power away. She was doing something that was joyful, and she gave all of her money away. She gave all her possessions away, and she did what she thought she was doing. What made her heart joyful and celebrative. And yes, some people do exploit people who are generous, and if you are being generous to someone who is exploiting you, then you're foolish. Give of yourself to where it's needed, but if people are exploiting you, then walk away. You don't want to put yourself in that kind of position. You have to be discerning, and that's a big important word for me. That's a word that I throw around a lot, and it's a word that I really, really, really mean, because you can be kind and generous to someone, but if they're taking advantage of you, if they are not addressing their own needs, if they are not working if they're not working in some way, shape, or form to get out of a situation they're in, then you're not helping them. So I'm not saying don't help people who are in need. I'm saying absolutely help them, but make sure that what you're doing is actually helping them and not enabling them. So you have to be discerning about just what your gifts are doing for someone. If your gifts are preventing someone from actually taking care of themselves, that's not a gift. If someone is hungry and you feed them, absolutely help them find work then. Help them to help themselves. Don't be so genuine and so saintly that you forget that you don't want to be an enabler. You want to be someone who is helping someone find their own way. And sometimes people get caught up in the difference of the two things. It's easy to get caught up in, but when you catch yourself, then back off and shift and change and move in another direction. That old thing about you give a starving man a fish, you feed him for a day. You teach him to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. That can be applied to almost everything. And if someone isn't willing to learn to do something to help themselves, then being constantly generous to that person is enabling them, and not being generous to them, in many ways, it's preventing them from learning how to take care of themselves. So, and just don't get carried away with being generous to the point where you are not being generous, but you're enabling. And no, you never give away your personal power, but you don't wield your personal power either. You don't rub it in somebody's face, and you don't talk about how great you are and how bad they are. You don't do that kind of crap. But okay, Kathy's saying, I find many people expect things because I'm a generous person, or I should say, to go along with that, will always call on me because I never say no. Maybe you should learn to say no, Kathy. That's giving away your power. Being able to say no at the right time is important. Understanding your own place in all of this is important. Chris, you shouldn't be soliciting in the chat room. It's wonderful to be generous. It's foolish to be taken advantage of, and there is a fine line. But once you feel that you have been taken advantage of, you learn how to say no and back up. It's okay to say no. It's okay to say no to family. It's okay to say no to strangers. It's okay to say no to spouses. It's okay to say no to children. So you just have to again be discerning. Have I given this person a lot of money or a lot of effort and a lot of whatever, and they haven't done anything with it? If you've listened to a person complain about the same thing for year after year after year, you have to be able to say, you've never done anything to change that. Maybe you should stop complaining and go get help, or find a different direction to go in. But complaining to me is pulling me down, and I just don't want to hear it anymore. Maybe they need to have that kind of a reality check. I'm not saying be that way with everybody. I'm absolutely not saying being rude, but I am saying you can point something out to them, and if they don't change, then you can make a choice and a decision. Do I want this kind of person around me? And if this is a child or a parent, you don't have much choice. But if this is a friend, you do, and you can distance yourself. and you can put your energy, you can put your efforts into places where there is not only a reciprocity but a reception of, and people genuinely appreciating the efforts that you've done, so that you have to learn, and you have to pay attention. And being generous doesn't mean you just give everything away. It means that you give where it's needed, and you give where it will help. But you don't give where it is going to prevent the person from learning and growing on their own. That's not your responsibility. And I have found in my life that I probably have enabled people in places where I shouldn't have. I just thought I was being spiritual, and the reality is that's not the case. I do believe that in many cases people will call spiritual shows and ask the same question over and over and over for year after year after year. And by taking the call and hearing the question and actually answering it year after year after year has enabled them to go forward. That's why I changed the venue for my show, and I don't let people ask questions anymore. I give them what Spirit gives me. That's how I dealt with it. Everybody will deal with it in their own way, but it's sort of like, let me give you what Spirit gives me, and hopefully it'll help you figure out your own problem, and you can find a solution. But this karma thing is it's amazing, and it can bring you such amazing wealth, and I don't mean money. I mean abundance. I think that I've never felt richer in my entire life, and yet I don't have money. I can pay my bills, but I don't. I'm not going around the world for my next vacation. But don't ask for a general reading. No. It's really phenomenal how we have to look at our own talents and the gifts that we have to give each other, and pay attention to how you're giving them, and look at and weed your garden, weed the garden of your friendships often. I mean, frankly, I have a garden, and if it flowers, I love it. If it doesn't flower, I take it out. That's just my garden. I have people that have been in my life for a very, very long time, and every now and then I find that they've stopped flowering, and I don't slam doors on them, but I don't break my neck to do things with them anymore, because they're in a place that is different from the place I'm in, and it doesn't mean that they're in a bad place. It's just they're in a different place. So you put your energy into things that are helping you to move forward. At the same time, being as generous as you can, as loving as you can, as giving as you can, as the whole thing. But just because you give a lot to other people doesn't make you a good person. You have to be a good person before you go giving everything away. And lots of times people give to others thinking that will make everybody think that they're a wonderful person. But if you're not a wonderful person to start with, then you can give everything away. And nobody's opinion will change of you. So that it's working on the internal, working on your intention, working on the way that you address and share within your reality, and then giving out of yourself to other people. And you don't give so much of yourself away that there's nothing left for you. That's something that a lot of healers run into. they find that they are drained, they find that they have nothing left, and they're not actually doing a healing, they're not channeling cosmic energy, so to speak. They're using their vital energy, and they have used their own vital energy as opposed to channeling and allowing a spiritual energy to come through them, and that's why they're drained. And so it's amazing how here there are people that are trying to do a spiritual thing. They're trying to use spiritual energy, and yet they don't trust it enough, so that they're using their own vital energy and they're giving people energy, and people feel fine, but they feel drained. You shouldn't feel drained if you've been doing something spiritual. If you are truly linked into that spiritual aspect, that spirituality within you, there is no end to the power, to the energy, to the insight, to the wisdom, to the magic that you can utilize. If you're tired after you've worked with people or worked on people, if you're a healer or a psychic or a channeler or whatever, if you're tired or drained, you haven't been in the right place, and you should back up and reattach yourself to that spirit within you. And that's where the absolutely limitless power is. That's where the limitless energy is. Limitless. It's never ending. You could go on forever and ever and ever and ever, and you would only be revitalized and energized. And of course, they'll have to pry you off the ceiling after a while, but it makes you higher than a kite, and it's the best high in the entire world. But you need to be in touch with and connected to that spirit within. The whole purpose of all of the stuff that I'm doing with you is to help you build that bridge, is to help you make that connection with your higher consciousness, and trust that you've made it, and know that you've made it, and know that you are connected to that part of the infinite spirit that is timeless, ageless, interdimensional, that has all of the answers that you could possibly even ask, and answers to questions you don't even know you want to ask yet. And it feels to me as though, everybody's moving in that direction. It feels as though there is a sense of a greater awareness as to what it takes to build that bridge. And once you have that bridge, it's amazing what you have access to. Now, are you going to write books that make you a bestseller and make you rich? Maybe not. But you will be able to give wisdom and information and insight to people, and you'll be able to touch people's hearts and souls and spirits in a way that you never did before. And it will surpass whatever a religious experience has given you, because it is more than that. And it's not a matter of preaching to someone. It's a matter of sharing who you are with someone. And that's where this power is, and that's where the magic is, and that's where all of the cool stuff is there. So that it's grows it by open solar chakra energy. Yeah. And maybe that's something that we want to too many people do not know the difference between acquaintances and friends. That's very true. That's very true, but that's a matter of becoming discerning within yourself. It's tough. It's a tough call to make. Sometimes people have been your best friends for a long time, and then suddenly they are just not the same people. Or maybe you've changed, and most likely you've been the one that changed, and they haven't. You may have grown. You may have touched into some cool stuff. And that's what all of this material is kind of, and I know I've piled a lot on you and will continue to. It's important that we understand that there is so much magic that we have inside of ourselves that we're not using. And I have no idea why. Any of you could raise your hand and call in and talk with me on this stuff here. This is supposed to be a discussion group. I just saw the clock and I thought, oh crap, I've talked too long. So Deb, hi. What's your feeling about all this, Deb?
Well, I think what it is people haven't tuned themselves in to be aware. I think part of it they know, but they didn't get the fancy labels on the flashcards. They got the kindergarten version.
Yeah, that could be.
Okay, me. I got the kindergarten version, but that's usually because I ask for it. Like give me the baby steps, and then give me the fancy polish later after I know the parts.
Well,
but there's a lot of this because it comes back to, especially if we were raised in a Judeo-Christian type, environment. We've learned to give. We give time, talent, and tithing. We tithe our time, talent, and treasures, money, and that kind of thing. But are we doing it because we feel a sense of obligation, or we do it because, they say if we give 10%, we'll get more back? Where is our intent with this? It kind of holds up the flow process. And that's where the Dharma and the Karma part comes in.
Mm-hmm. No, that's very true. And, if you're giving because you have to, or because there's redemption or anything like that, then you have put such attachments on it that it loses its validity tremendously. And it doesn't become...
But how many people are brought up with that? You've got to do or then, that whole thing about it's positive, we can change it, we're worth it, and then we get told, no, we're not. We're not worth it. We have to have somebody intervene for us. I mean, it's a wordplay thing that if we're brought up in certain environments that we have to go, now wait a minute, let's pull this apart and discern it some more and see just what that really means.
No, absolutely. And when people tithe, when there's a collection plate that goes around and things like that, it's usually to support the church or the ministries or the missionaries, and you don't know how much of that really goes in those directions. And maybe it's kinder or better to look in your local area and find soup kitchens and homeless shelters and things like that, to put your energy into things like that, rather than not dirtying your hands but opening your wallet. Any fool can open a wallet, write a check, or flash a credit card. But if you're going to get in there and roll your sleeves up, then that's giving. That's giving of yourself. That's giving of your energy. That's giving of your spirit.
And then you get to give back. I know I always have whenever I've worked in the soup kitchens or the community, giveaways, whatever. It's I've cooked in some, and then I've been at that part where I was glad to find a soup kitchen to go to. There's a whole circle.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely. And I think that what so many people have gotten caught up in is looking for the payback, looking for the return, looking for what's coming at them, looking for what am I getting out of this. And again, that's, when you get into that level, that area of what am I getting? I'm investing this, what am I getting back? The reality is you're not getting anything back because your intention is to get a return. Your intention is not to give, and I'm not. And please understand, everybody should have a nice place to live. They should have clothes on their back. They should have food in their mouth. They should have all the toys they want. That's not. I'm not attacking that aspect, but I am saying that if your intent is to be spiritual, if your intent is to build that bridge, find that spirit within and stuff like that, then you have to stop looking at what's the payback to this. It's kind of like I'm giving because it feels good, and don't ever give if it doesn't feel good, because you're not going to get anything back in return. You're just not. The return comes when you don't expect it. The return comes when it's unanticipated. The return comes unexpectedly from left field. But it does come. And it doesn't come today or tomorrow. It comes when it's right, when it's appropriate, when your life is rich, and when there is something that you need, that you've been looking for. I can't tell you the number of times that I have, something has come just when it couldn't have been more perfect, and it was unexpected, and it just meant the world to me. It often has brought tears to my eyes because something happened, and it couldn't have been more perfectly timed, and I don't think it was. I think that it was a return of an investment I made, and I don't even know when I made it. But something came back at me, and it was like, wow, I did something right somewhere. I wish to hell I knew what it was, because I'd do it again.
I used to like cooking at the church because it felt good. I got joy out of seeing those people eat.
Mhm.
But that was it.
I had a friend who owned a restaurant, and she ran on hard times, and her daughter didn't want to go to school because she didn't want to have to go to gym class because all of her underwear had holes in it. And so I had some money put aside, and I put it in a birthday card for her, and I gave it to her. And she said, it's not my birthday. I said, I'm ahead of time, or I'm late, whichever way you want to look at it. But it's a gift. And she opened the card, and I have never seen this friend cry, and she cried. She said, I can't pay this back. I said, it's a birthday present. You don't pay birthday presents back. 15 years later, my mother had passed away. I had to sell the house. I couldn't afford to live there. And she happened to be a realtor at the time, and so I asked her if she wanted an exclusive listing, and, she said yes, and she arranged for people to come, and, I signed all the papers at the house, and she gave me a card, and I said, what's this? She said, it's a birthday present, and I opened it, and it was the same amount of money, and I looked at her, and I hadn't had money for food for 3 days, and I said, I don't think I could pay you back, and she said, it's a birthday present. You don't pay back birthday presents. I mean, never in my wildest dreams. It saved me. It totally saved me. It helped me to bridge between when the next check was coming in and I could have gas in the car. I mean, I can't tell you how much it meant. And never when I gave it to her did I think that she would ever pay me back, or that it would come at a time when I was just so desperate it was awful. But it happens when you don't expect.
I told you about that time that I could help a friend when she needed transportation, and she couldn't afford it, but it meant her having a job to support her children and herself, or not getting the job. It requirement you had to show up with a car. Well, we found the car, and I gave her the money for it. And, she says, but I can't. And I said, I'm not saying so, or whatever, but you got to have this. And then it was a good number of years later down the line, she showed up, and she'd gotten a bonus or something at work. I forgot what it was. But it was the money. And it was when I needed it. Because I was, catch to catch Ken. Didn't know where it was coming from, but I'd forgotten all about ever doing it. So.
No, I just, Elmar said she never thought I was hungry. When my father left my mother, it was very tough times. And we lived for a year on rice-a-roni for dinner, and that was the only meal we had that time. We ate lunch at school, but that was the only meal that we had at home. It was rice-a-roni, and my sister and I, to this day, when that theme song plays, rice-a-roni, the San Francisco, my sister and I both turn green, and you live through what you have to, and you grow from it. And I was grateful for the rice-a-roni at the time, but let me tell you, I just have no desire to eat rice-a-roni anytime soon.
Yeah, I don't either. And I have one son that won't eat dumplings. Big, fat, fluffy dumplings with gravy. Nope.
Yeah.
We ate them every day for a month at one point because it's all we had.
Yeah,
and he won't eat dumplings now.
But you do what you have to do, and you do with what you've got. But it's I think the important thing is your perception and your intention. My God, those are two words that are so important. If you perceive this as being, horrible, it's horrible. If you perceive this as being a challenge, it's a challenge. And if you perceive this as being an adventure, it's an adventure. And does it work all the time? No, you have to work at it. You absolutely have to work at it. But let me tell you something. I mean, I'm 70 years old, and I've learned a lot, and it works. It absolutely works. And yes, you have times and moments when you have a good cry, and you say this isn't fair, and then you get over it, and you sit down and you make changes in your life. And sometimes you have to rant and rave, and I have my fair share of rants and raves and my fair share of sitting and feeling sorry for myself. But the reality is, once that's over, and I think everyone's entitled to those things. I don't think any of us are so perfect that we don't have to have those ways of venting. But once you've vented, you sit back and you say, okay, so what have I learned from this? And sometimes you need your good friends to say, okay, help me figure out what I've learned from this. And let's stop the sarcastic, nasty comments, because that won't help any. So let's just, what of a positive nature have I gathered from this experience, and where am I going to take it, and how am I going to make my life better because of it? And let me tell you, sometimes it's taken a good 2 or 3 bottles of wine with my friends to figure out good stuff. But I'm not sure we actually ever really found some good to some of the situations. But we had a really good time giggling through the wine. And I'm not suggesting you all become winos because of or whatever. But sometimes just the camaraderie is enough to get you out of it and to get you aimed in another direction.
Sometimes they can see it from that other direction you can't yet, and put that other spin on it.
Yes, and Kathy said, there's always someone worse off than you. Or was it they said, I cried because I had no shoes until I saw a man who had no feet.
Feet. Yep.
I mean, that's got to be a tough one. But it's. I would like everybody to leave this circle tonight understanding that you have total, absolute control of creating a reality that is going to be beneficial and spiritual, and you can change the karma that's coming your way. And if you feel that you're not going anywhere, it's only because you haven't gone in the right direction. It's only because you've been stuck in a hole and you're not looking at where you could possibly take your life. So it's really important that you understand your future is totally, absolutely in your hands. You can aim it in the same direction it's been going in, and if you love that direction, that's fine. But you're going to have to change it anyhow, because everything always changes. Nothing stays the same. And you have to understand that by seeding your consciousness, by putting those seeds of let's move in another direction. Let's look at the fact that this is really good karma. This is good stuff. This is lots of fun, and we're doing this for a good reason. And if nothing comes of it, nothing comes of it. But isn't this great? I mean, buying seeds and taking them into the woods and scattering them so that wildflowers will grow there in another year, and coming back in a year or two and seeing fields of wildflowers, and you know that it was the packets that you threw out there. I mean, wow, amazing. There are so many cool things we can do that take no money. And usually people say, well, I want to do that, but I don't have the money to do that. And the reality is, being spiritual and walking a spiritual pathway doesn't cost you a dime. Not one dime. There is no cost put on spirituality. It is how you are walking through this lifetime, how you are touching into the reality that we've got. Deb, you want to see who some of these people are that are calling in? Because somebody, it looks like they have their hand raised. Okay. Oh, I see. Yeah.
So
well,
I
see.
17 seconds.
No, come on, we have half an hour. While Deb is going, I'll just kind of reiterating that you know, we have control here. We have a future, and we have control of what that future holds for us. And it is imperative that we seed that future with positive, wonderful, joyful, happy, insightful, creative, inspirational stuff. Because once we do that, then you know, the richness that we pull in is profound. Hi, Marie. How are you doing tonight?
I am just waking up. I was listening to you and snoozing at the same time, but I caught everything.
Well, I'm glad you did.
Been on the computer all day, but so I was brain dead. But now I'm back again. I wanted to say something about the conversation. Something just came to me very clearly. A while back, years and years ago, I might have mentioned this before, a friend of mine always complained that I told about this big golden door, but there was no way to get up to the door. I always left out the stairs to get there. So she was saying this is no help to humankind if they can't figure out how to get up the stairs. And then about 2 days ago, a gentleman emailed me about this new movie that they're trying to raise money for. And the movie's basically, if you listen to the interviews, is people basically saying, you know, you can change your life. You can pull yourself up by your bootstraps, whether you have any on or not, and you can do this because basically a few of the people actually alluded to the fact that if you weren't doing better in the world, it's because you didn't want to or because you had some issues with success. Now, I know and you know and all of us know that based on our own belief system, that is 100% true. But then I had to come back to him and say, but you have not taken into account, number one, the pain and the dread and the heaviness some people experience, rather for a myriad of reasons. It could be anything, the caste system, sexism, racism, you know, you name it, built into a system to keep, no matter how high you climb, they keep raising the bar up. You know, how many people with college educations, and met a woman from Yale, and she had her PhD from Yale, and she couldn't get a job. So the point that I called in to say, my complaint, gentle complaint was I agree with your movie, but it's not helpful right now because it's not taking into account the pain. It's not taking into account the load that people are carrying. And as I was listening to all of you talk tonight, and especially in this last 15, 20 minutes, half hour, where you were sharing your experiences of not having food and how reciprocation and the law of return came back to you personally, it occurred to me those are the stairs up to the door. When we hear personal how I did it and what I went through, I think makes it very real for human beings. And then they can also see, well, if she did it this way, then I can this way. And I think that's really important to add the personal testimony to everything because it's a roadmap for human beings more than the lofty ideas that we know are true, but they're not stairs. That's all I need to say.
Okay. Well, I thank you for sharing that. I think that you have a very good point. I know that lots of time, especially when I was serving in the pulpit, I didn't do sermons, I did sharings, and usually it was, this is how I screwed up, find a way to do it yourself. My way didn't work, but but this is what did work for me type stuff. And I think that it's important for everybody to understand that getting to those stairs, getting to that bridge, getting to that place where we are in communication with our higher consciousness is it's built upon our struggles, and it's built upon our victories. And lots of times we have victories that we don't even recognize that we have the victory. And it isn't until, much later in life that you discover, wow, I did something right there. That worked out. That made a difference in somebody's life. And it wasn't really meant to be as magnanimous as it turned out to be. And then there have been other times in my life where I have given, when my husband was alive, he worked with this young man, and he was 40. But anyhow, when Patrick passed away, this guy didn't have a van to use for work, and so I gave him Patrick's van. And I thought, Patrick would really like that, and it meant a lot to the kid. And a month and a half later, I noticed it wasn't around. I asked if there had been trouble with it, and his mother-in-law said, no, he sold it. He needed money for drugs. And I sat back and I thought, okie doke, maybe that wasn't the best way to go.
Oh, look at it this way, Barbara. Suppose you hadn't given him the car and he didn't have money for drugs and he went out, robbed, and accidentally killed someone.
Oh,
so
yeah, no, that did kind of, I was hopeful that something like that was in play, but it was kind of like, okay, my intent was to help him, and and maybe I did help him in a strange way, but it was sort of like I felt, holy cow, I would have thought he would have held on to it because it was Patrick's and it meant something to him. And then I realized I had given a gift with expectations, which is not a thing to do. And I gave a gift that wasn't really a gift because I expected something in return. And and then, of course, when he sold it, it was like, that in great. So even though I know all of this stuff, I still, gave it for my intention wasn't as honorable, I guess, because I felt hurt that he had sold it. And if my intention had been genuine and I just wanted to give him the car and I didn't really care what he did with it and whatever, then it wouldn't have mattered to me, but it did matter to me. So that maybe my intention wasn't as good as I thought it was in the first place. And, I think that, that was probably one of those places where I wasn't saying, why am I giving this? Is this really a genuine gift? Am I really giving this freely and releasing all connection to it? I probably shouldn't have given it away because it was Patrick's and it still had some connection to Patrick for me. And, in retrospect. But at the time, it felt like I was being generous, but I don't think I was because I had put strings on it.
And again, that's a good example for people to understand. I remember a lady called me up and she said, I wrote this person and he's a really well-known, spiritual leader, and I told him blah, 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 and she basically was trying to say that she was telling him that he was not really all that in a bag of chips and he had too much ego, but she was trying to say it in a way that would make him feel better. And then she ended up calling me and said, well, I sent the letter. Would you pray and ask how it went over? And I got from Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit said, well, the letter was fine except for the energy you put in the envelope and sealed it up. And she said, what energy? Well, what were you thinking when you sealed it up? She said, well, I'll tell you the truth, I was thinking you was a jackass. Mm-hmm. I said, well, that energy was in that envelope. And when he opened it up, it doesn't matter what the letter said and how nicely and politically correct it was. It had your intent. And I had that happen to a person who was with me. She opened a card from someone that we knew who was very upset with her for things that she was doing. And she opened the card, and as soon as she opened the card, her tongue swelled up, like with an acidosis, what the old people call reflux. And
acid reflux, yeah.
Yeah, and we took her to the hospital, and I knew what was wrong with her. She just needed some citrobicarbonate, but I was really tired of her mouth myself, so I just waited for the doctors. They took 12 hours, and about the time I got tired, I said, okay, I'm going to Walgreens and get something to cure you. But all that time she sat in the hospital with her tongue swelled up, but she couldn't talk. It was wonderful. minutes after drinking the citrobicarbonate for her tongue to go down.
Oh, God.
But it was in that envelope to that day. She said, I'll never open an envelope from anyone angry with me again.
Well, I had a similar thing. A friend of mine is a numerologist, and he's got a wonderful website. And apparently, somebody had taken his website and linked it to theirs and was taking credit. And he was very upset, and he had written an article that he was going to post on his website about, how this person named this person, and then went into the interpretation of this person's name and what it meant, and how they were really exhibiting these negative aspects and yada yada yada. And he said, what do you think? And I wrote back and I said, well, if your intention is to drive people to her website, this is one way to do it. A better way to handle it would probably be to ignore it, because flashes in the pan flash fast and then go away. Better to take no action than to take this kind of action, because first of all, she didn't ask for the reading, and second of all, there was venom connected to everything that you said, and I suspect that there were positive things that you could have said had you been in that frame of mind. And he took it down off his website.
And next to the interpretation of the laws that you are currently teaching us and reviewing with us, is that our interpretation of those laws are very literal, but those laws are very spiritual, and they come out in everything you do, and they do not change. So if your intent is not correct, it's going to bounce back at you and everyone else, and you're going to be very embarrassed when you see that, ooh, I messed up. Even that young man that sold the car, it might have been his sole purpose and your spirit's purpose to show your ego mind what the intent really was. Otherwise, you might not have known.
Well, yeah, and I think that these laws, it's truly, the Dharma, the concept of Dharma is walking a righteous path, and all of the universal laws are what create that path. And you can run, but you can't hide from them. They're always there, and I think it's important that we question so much that we do and that we say and how we act, because it will have repercussions down the road. We will, it will come back. Everything comes back at us, and it's sort of like what your real intentions are, what your genuine intentions are what going to come back at you. So that there are going to be times in everybody's life when we are sure that we are making the most spiritual choices we could possibly make, and the reality is we are probably so blown up with ego at the time that we don't notice it, and what comes back at us is not at all what we had expected. And the reality is you do these things with no expectations, just a genuine desire to be more spiritual and loving and kind and compassionate and giving and sharing and all of that crap. And when that doesn't come back at us, we have to really go back and question, what was my motive? What was my intent? And I guess my intent had been to see that van all over the place, with somebody enjoying it and having a good time with it, and knowing that in a way Patrick's, stuff was still helping people, and the reality is it went for a couple bags of dope.
But wait. Now let's take it further. Maybe the person who ended up with the car was the one who bought the car for maybe less than it was worth, but they really needed that car to get to work or transport their kids, and they would not have been able to get it unless they could have bought it from that young man. See, there we go.
You're really reaching. He sold it to his dealer, and you're going to have to really stretch for this one. But no, you have a very good point, that down the line somewhere, generations from now, there's probably a positive here, because there always is a positive. There always is, and it just is such a stretch to find it sometimes. But, I mean, my intentions were not as my intentions were genuine. But there were conditions connected to them, and you can't do that when you're giving, because then it's not really unconditional giving. Then it's not really unconditional sharing. It's there's a price, there's a cost. I have a string or two attached to it, and the concept of unconditional is just it's something I guess we're going to have to spend a whole session on, because unconditional means there are no conditions.
That's right.
And it's sort of like all of us, most of us have trouble with that, especially with the aspect of love, because, I mean, I've heard people say, well, I'll love you until you stop loving me, or I'll love you if you do this or this or this for me. And that's not unconditional love. That's conditional love. That's emotional blackmail, literally.
It certainly is for better or worse.
No. and so I think we have to understand that unconditional means that no matter, it's the kind of love a mother has for a child. I don't always like what you do, but I will always love you. And I have said that to my son on occasion. He's going to be 50 in a couple of years, and I think I've probably said it to him twice in his life. I love you very much, but I don't like what you just did. And because of that, you're grounded for the next month. So, I wanted to first validate that I loved him, and then that he was punished. So I think we have to understand that that's something that's an aspect. It's very hard to love unconditionally. It really is.
We don't have a lot of role models from it. I mean, you might have had a great mother or a grandmother or a father who did that and gave it. But in the world, especially in our culture, we don't get to see it exhibited a lot every day. So you're kind of groping in the dark and trying to understand principles that another thing that human beings need, again, the stairs, the modeling for it.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're right, and I can't actually think of anything currently. We spoke a little bit last week of the hugging nun. I would say she was unconditional. I think Mother Teresa was unconditional. I think Jesus was unconditional. There have been individuals throughout history, recorded time, that have been unconditional, but I mean, I don't like to go to the Bible because but God was pretty conditional. When nobody did what he wanted to, he wiped everybody out. So, I mean,
I'm not sure if that's which God that is, because sometimes when you read the Bible, there's a couple gods in there, and back in those days,
I'm talking Old Testament God.
Old Testament God. Was that one.
Yeah, that one. But New Testament God is unconditional. He forgives everything, which is good.
there was a God before the Old Testament God, and there's a whole book called When God Was a Woman, which goes back to the matriarch. So he wasn't the first God that human beings knew.
No. Well, humans have known lots and lots of gods, and most of them have been quite conditional. So, you don't believe in me, that's fine. I'll just kill you. It's real easy. That's a simple condition. It's my way or the highway. We have free will, and that's I think that's what's so wonderful about where we are right now. We have total control of how we are perceiving and seeding our future. Tomorrow, we have total control over how we perceive it and how we work our way through it, and the next moment. I mean, just it's now what? It's 12 minutes to 9. Well, this next minute coming up, I can perceive as full of joy and love, or I can perceive as I only have another 10 minutes. So that it's sort of like how we address things, how we see them, feel them, and our intentions as to how we are going to move forward within our reality has a great deal to do with what we create. And we are the creator of our future. It isn't, yes, before we incarnated, we asked for a certain number of lessons and experiences so that the spirit within could grow and could expand. Absolutely, we did that. And those are basically something that are going to come no matter what our attitude is. But how we receive them, how we deal with them, how we perceive them is totally up to us. And you have a choice. Everybody has choices, and you don't have to take things as they are. You can change them, and you can change them amazingly. You have the power inside of you, and once we get through all of this stuff and understanding, and we get into the belief and believing you are capable and have the power that you do have, then how do you use it? Oh, and the Urantia book. The Urantia book is amazing. I admire anyone who's waded through that one.
I have.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful channeled material.
There are still, even in the Urantia book, you can see the places where the humans who were channeling it put their human standing and spin, because there's a part where they were talking about the 2 Gardens of Eden and the second Eve, basically, who was set up to have relationships with someone other than Adam, which we now call the serpent. But then it was a being who was genetically kind of perfect for her. They told Eve before she came, you have no patience, be patient, wait until we things up, and she didn't. But they said that the human beings were evolved out of 2 species, if I recall right. One was the ape, and the other was, I thought they said the lemur. And they seem to think in the Urantia book that the lemur was the better evolution for humankind, for that group, because they were more aggressive. And to me, aggression is not necessarily good, but the way they channel and how they felt on based on their culture, that was the better species, because there is more than one species on this planet.
Yeah. Wasn't the first wife Lilith? And Lilith
called her that in the Urantia book, but it was Lilith. And Lilith told Adam, kiss my grits, I'm not dealing with this.
Yeah. Take a hike. Yes.
But they also demonized her, villainized her, and all the other cohorts of the goddesses after that by making them, bloodsuckers. There's, all this negative stuff you see about the divine feminine side just came in recent history for man.
Yeah.
It was not at first. I'll get off. Somebody else can get on and talk too, but I thank you so much for taking my call.
As always, it's a pleasure. Thanks a lot now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, no, I think that we are at a point in time here where I would love for you guys to just take some time out of every morning before you get going and pay attention to how you are perceiving what's coming your way and work with that, because the more you work with it, it's like a muscle. The more you work with it, the better you get at it. The better you get at it, the better the karma coming your way. The better the karma coming your way, the more joyful your reality is. The more joyful your reality is, the more bountiful you will perceive it, and you will experience it. So it's and again, meditation is fine and wonderful, prayer is fine and wonderful, but this is something. This is philosophy. You're not asking an outside source to do anything. You're working on programming. It's like a computer. You're programming your consciousness to have a better communication with your higher consciousness. You're programming yourself to be able to look at the future differently and expand into that future differently. It's a wonderful process. It does work. I mean, there are, and again, the Urantia book is a wonderful book. Excuse me. Conversations with God is a wonderful series. There are great books out there, but that's just gathering material. I want you to start practicing, because gathering insight and gathering material and all of that stuff, wonderful. I have absolutely nothing against it. I totally endorse it. But if you are focused more on gathering philosophy rather than practicing it, it's an excuse to get on with your life and do things in a different way. So that it's really important to be practicing what you're learning, practicing the new insight, practicing the new directions that you're going in, and then gather all the other material, read all the books. They're all fabulous. Science of Mind is wonderful. The Bible is a wonderful book. Go into Manly P. Hall's stuff. His stuff is great too. But do understand that unless you are practicing some of this, it's totally worthless information you're shoving into your brain. Having a philosophy and not living it is totally worthless to you. So start the practicing bit. There's nothing stopping you except, of course, yourself. And it's easy to do. Start working on the simple things. Work at the stuff that is easy for you to do. Do the easy stuff. Stop yourself before you reply to somebody and just see if there isn't a better way to say what you're thinking and feeling. And start working on standing up for yourself, not letting people take your power from you, and becoming a new person. Work on yourself. That's what will change everything else. Reading a library full of philosophy is not going to change you, but you working on changing yourself does. When I have a difficulty with a person or whatever, the first reaction is to get even, and the second reaction is to how have I learned, what have I learned and where am I going with this, and the next one is, it's time to move on, because if I wallow in this, I'm just rubbing salt in an open wound and creating yucky stuff. So I'm moving on. The universe will always take care of people that do unkindness to other people. Always does. There's universal balance. It absolutely works. It's 100%. I guarantee it. So if you are inclined to change yourself, you'll be inspired to learn more about the subjects that affect you. That's true. That's true. But change yourself. And this doesn't cost money. That's why this circle costs nothing. Because if I charged for it, then I would be doing it because I wanted a return of money, and I don't. I want to put information out there. and my intent was to share information. My intent was to talk to all of you. My intent was to share information, to share experiences, and to grow. And so that's what I'm doing, and I really hope you are too, because it's a cool thing. And so spirituality should not cost anything. Understanding spiritual laws and spiritual philosophies should not cost anything. I'm not here to teach you to be a psychic or a channel or anything like that. I'm here to share with you spiritual information, and and hopefully you're going to share back someday. If we keep this going long enough, some of you will start talking. You have to understand that everybody has their own personal truth, and everybody's right. Nobody's wrong. You know, and I would love to hear some of those of you who are sitting quietly to share, to give impressions, to share your